Welcome to LifeHerStyle, a podcast for Christian women who are ready to live boldly for Christ in every season of life. I'm your host, Kari, pastor's wife, ordained minister, toddler mama, and truth-speaking friend. Whether you're navigating motherhood, ministry, marriage, or your God-given mission, you'll find inspiration rooted in scripture and stories that point your heart back to Jesus. Tune in each week as we explore faith-filled living through the stories of ordinary women doing extraordinary things for Christ. Because her style of life, it's set apart. Let's do life her style.
So we're in the new year for this episode. What is your biggest suggestion for maybe women out there wanting to get healthy in the new year? Where should they start?
Just get a good lab panel. And usually, there's some great basic panels you can get that are very discounted through like the health department. Some of the hospitals will do like a health fair. I would say that's a good indicator. And if you have the training I have, you could say like, "Oh, okay, this is probably what's going on with that." That panel would not be as in depth as what I would order. If you were just wanting to do whatever, if you're like, hey, just order whatever you want or whatever you think I need, I would order more than that, but that would still be a great place to start because you wouldn't drive your car all year and never check the fluids. That's like if you're never getting labs and you're even in your 20s and you're just like, yeah, I'm fine. No, there's probably some things to work on because I've been working on my health now diligently for 10 plus years and there's still things I can work on. So it's
Yeah.
like, but if you check things and you see patterns, you could intervene early where if you wait until there's a problem, then it's going to be a lot harder to turn that around. So just getting the labs and the seed, and usually even if people are like, I feel pretty good, once you sit down and talk to them, there's some things that they would like to see change.
Having the knowledge is such a great foundation because otherwise you're just walking around like, I have no idea what's going on in there. But then when you can kind of get the lab done, there's a little bit of an indicator of here's some areas to focus on. And I think that's what's so cool about what you do is really trying to get a snapshot of what's going on at a cellular level even and like how can we move the dial in a more positive direction. So I think that's a really great tool to use are the labs. What are the most common issues that you see with your patients these days?
Yeah, I see a lot of metabolic issues, which would be blood sugar issues. How's that presents usually is someone that carries snacks around with them all the time. They're like, I always have to snack. That's a sign of hypoglycemia, and that's a sign that you're headed towards like diabetes eventually. Because that will turn into insulin resistance and eventually you're going to end up with diabetes. So that's one thing I see pretty commonly. I see a lot of people skipping breakfast and then struggling with weight loss. And that's the one meal you do not want to skip. And breakfast should be eaten within an hour of sunrise because that's when we have our highest metabolic fire. And that's just stabilizing the blood sugar for the day. If you skip breakfast, you're going to be on a blood sugar roller coaster all day long. And it needs to have at least 30 grams of protein in it. I do see quite a bit of deficiencies. I think everyone's familiar with vitamin D at this point, but I am trying to get people to go more towards like, let's get it naturally from the sun, let's get you outside versus let's just get it from a bottle. You get a lot more benefit from getting outside. Even with the big push in hydration, I see so much dehydration. Like, people are like, "I'm drinking water." I'm like, "Well, it's not getting into the cell." Like, you could be drinking a gallon of water, but if you're peeing all the time, it's just coming right back out. So you gotta have some minerals in there or structure your water so it can get into the cell. So that's another thing I see. And then people are like, "I'm getting 6 or 7 hours of sleep." No, we cannot do that. They're like, "Well, I need that time at night to unwind." I'm like, "We all do, but, like, how much time do you need? Do you need 2 hours? I don't think so." Like, they're like, "Oh, I could probably do, like, 30 minutes." I'm like, "Yeah." Because that's the time when your body's going through this whole rhythm of, like, drain the brain, drain the liver, drain the gut, it's trying to restore everything, and if you're not getting that restorative sleep, you're gonna be in a bad spot. And so I think those are the main things. I see that the other main, deficiency I see besides vitamin D is B6. That's a
Okay.
pretty common one.
Mhm.
So and that's really important for mood. That and magnesium are the other ones. And so that's for a lot of people that are in perimenopause or struggling with hormones. Those are things I commonly see that are off.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on kind of some of the more popular diets out there? So there's like intermittent fasting or OMAD or keto. Like what are your thoughts on some of those things?
How long do you want to be here today, Carrie? I've tried all the diets for you guys. You don't have to try them. The summary is if you could just remember this basics, it's local seasonal. So,
Mm,
what is in season where you're living is what you should be eating. So in the summer, we should be eating carbohydrates. We should be eating berries, melons, spinach, whatever's growing in the garden, which is really easy for me because we grow most of our food. So I just know it's not growing right now. I'm probably not in season, right? But for someone else, that may be a little bit harder. But and then in the winter, the ground's frozen here in Missouri. We don't have berries. We should not be eating blueberries and smoothies and pineapple and stuff all winter long. Our body should be switching from carb burning in the summer into fat burning in the winter. So like say you have a lot of metabolic issues and you're like, I have insulin resistance, my A1C is 5.4 higher, my glucose is above 86 fasting, then now is a great time to try out like carnivore and keto-ish just to get things under control because the more sugar you're eating, if you're eating a lot of processed food, then your palate's going to prefer that. But if you can cut it out, then your palate will adjust and you won't crave those things. But winter is the perfect time to experiment with those things because that's naturally what would be around. And then hopefully by spring, you're in a better place where you can, have a little bit more flexibility and add things in. But you could, of course, like add in berries and stuff like that. But it should be very, like, just basic, like not packaged food, just eggs, meat, dairy, cheese, and then I always tell people if God made it, it's good. If man made it, stay away. Or just, be wary of it.
yeah. Yeah.
Just say even with all the low carb stuff, it's like I consumed stevia for a long time, but when we were trying to get pregnant, I had read that stevia could possibly impact fertility, and I was like, I don't know. Like I'm just such a fan of stevia. But after 3 months of trying, I was like, Bo, like, let's just try and cut stevia out. And he's like, okay. Lo and behold, that's the month we get pregnant. I'll never know if that's what it was, but it's just so interesting that that was the month. And now I'm like, should I even be consuming it if I'm pregnant? Because if it's
Mm,
having that impact on us, then what's it having on my developing baby? So it's just
yeah.
interesting. But I think there's a time and place for certain diets. Like if you're chronically ill and you can tolerate two foods, then yes, those are the things you should be eating. But ideally, I think God wants us to eat a variety of things He created
Mhm.
um, and just eat local and seasonal. And that's the thing, you just have to come back to that all the time is what's growing here in this season. That's what I should be
Yeah.
eating. Now, if I go to Florida and there's all this fruit, I can eat it while I'm there because I'm in that same sun. But if I'm back in Missouri, there's not pineapple growing here. I shouldn't be eating it right now.
Right. Yeah, I think it's interesting about the stevia because that was something I utilized a lot too, in my coffee drinks, things like that. And I started having like stomach issues, and I didn't know where the stomach issues were coming from. And I had read somewhere where stevia can cause digestive issues, and so I stopped using it. And lo and behold, like those issues went away, and it's like, wow, like you think that you're making a healthy choice, but sometimes your body's like, nope, this isn't the thing. Don't do this. And so I think that's really interesting that you discovered that too, and you're trying to conceive. Um, Speaking of that, what should women trying to conceive focus on when it comes to health? Are your suggestions the same no matter the age of the woman, or would you make different suggestions based on age?
The suggestions would be the same. So, I mean, being really diligent with diet, because you just have to think you can only eat so much food in the day. I mean, I have a pretty big appetite, but there's still only so much room, so it really has to count. So incorporating things like 2 eggs per day or 14 eggs per week, plenty of omega. So when we were in the months trying to conceive, I was eating salmon 5 times a week. And
Mm,
and before that, it was like 2 times a week, and I thought that was a lot, but those are just so important for the omega profile. And then sardines are great, really nutrient dense. Oysters are really great nutrient dense. So those are like the liver, oysters, sardines are like multivitamins that are in food form. And then just get enough protein in to have amino acids in your body, and then hydration. And then all the things I mentioned before, like the sleep, the sunlight, and, um, the dehydration part of things. So get enough fluid in. But it's basically the same things that are going to make anyone that's sick healthy are going to make anybody be able to have a baby. That's
Yeah.
what it comes down to. And I think too, as women, we're like, it's my fault. And that's really not true. It's 50-50. So if your partner is having health issues, it's 50%, it's on them. So they need to also be doing these things. It's not just the women that could be impacting fertility.
Sure. Sometimes I think we think in that direction because we're the ones that are carrying the baby, but we're not the only ones making the baby. So that would make sense that both people kind of need to focus on their health. You've talked a little bit about hydration. Is there anything that you would suggest to people besides just drinking more water? Like, what is a way that they can actually be retaining some of that, for their proper hydration?
I am not a fan of Element, I have to say that. I was so addicted to Element personally. It I don't know what it is that they put in there that you're like, "I just need it," but I was heartbroken when my practitioner was like, "You cannot have Element anymore." I'm like, "Why? I need it." But I was drinking like 3 Elements per day. I'm the person that has like 4 glasses on the table, all with different fluids. So I'm drinking all this fluid and I'm still getting labs and I'm dehydrated. I'm like, "How is this possible?" And my husband's like, "Yeah, how is this possible?" Because he's seen me drink all this. He knows what he's drinking. He's like, "This just isn't adding up." So it's like you have to properly mineralize the water. So that means adding good quality salt to it. So there's some products I use, but if you wanted to just do like the most affordable option, it's just making Sole water, which is SOLE. So you make a salt concentration basically, like a salt water concentration. You would just put that into your water. So that's going to be mineralizing it, and that's going to help it get into the cell. Because think of those minerals as little spark plugs creating energy in your body. But then you can also structure your water by stirring it, like vortexing it. So that creates structure in it, or adding chia seed, which are a really good fatty acid, which is really good for cell health, which would be great for skin and hair and fertility. But adding chia seeds changes the texture and the structure of the water, so that also helps it get into the cell. And if you think about the chia seed, how it has that gel around it, that's what we want our cell to be like, is nice and like plump with that gel around it. And a lot of times that's getting depleted by our environment. So it's not always like the volume. Yes, probably most people need 3 liters of water per day, or like your body weight cut in half in ounces. That'd be like the general rule, but it's like, is it gonna get into the cell? But then what other things are you doing that's dehydrating you, that's causing you
Yeah.
to not retain your water? So, like, us being on the blue screens and, like, around the internet, and that's really dehydrating to the cell. And that the cell breaking down is ultimately what leads to disease. So the cellular health, that's why it's so foundational. That's why I talk about it so much, is that at 70% dysfunction in the cell, which is, if you think about it, amazing that it gets to that point, that's when we start to have problems, a symptom. And then like 80% is when we start to get a disease diagnosis, like hypothyroidism, or, you know, something like
Yeah.
that.
I had never thought about putting chia in my water, and then I saw you do it the other day on Instagram, and I was like, I'm briefly considering this. I don't know what it'll do, like, because I'm a texture person, so it's like, I wonder if I'll even notice. Do you feel like it's noticeable as you're drinking it?
Yeah, it's noticeable. Like, I will get to
Yeah.
the bottom of, like, you're kind of chewing it a little bit. But that stuff doesn't bother me. I do have a lot of people that are like, "That's not gonna be for me." I'm like, "That's fine. Just use the salt water." There's some other products, like, if you don't wanna make your own salt water, Body Bio Remineralize is great, or the Quinton Hypertonic is great. I'm just not a fan of the things like Element, because I haven't seen them work clinically well. A lot
Yeah.
of people told me, like, "I'm drinking those and my lips are so dry." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's just drying you out." Like, for whatever reason, it doesn't work well. Plus, it has stevia in it, which, if you're
Mhm.
sipping on that could potentially impact your blood sugar. But then also dentists have said, like, it's not great for your enamel. Like, it's kinda eating your teeth. So if you're, sipping on it all day long, it's not good for your dental hygiene
Yeah.
either, so.
Yeah. So many things to think about. So if somebody is hearing you now and they're like, I need to talk to this woman, how can they reach out to you? Are you able to see people outside of, the state of Missouri? Like, how does that work? Can they reach out to you no matter where they're at?
Yep. So I am a licensed practitioner. So if you see me in person in Iowa once per year, I could write a prescription for you, and I would be able to diagnose you with something. If you have hypothyroidism, I could put it on paper that you have hypothyroidism. And if you come into the office, I'll do a very old school head to toe exam on you. But if you live in another state and you don't come to see me, you get the same experience, just I can't write a prescription for you legally and I'm not diagnosing you legally, but the process is the same. I'm not holding back any information if you never come to see me in person. It's the same process. It's just I can't legally say you're my patient.
Sure. And so how would they get in contact with you? What's the best way?
I'm very active on Instagram, and that's with Alexandra Armstrong. And then my website also has a contact form, and that's also with alexandraarmstrong.com. I'm on Facebook, but not too much. It's maybe every 3 days I will check Facebook. So Instagram or my website would be the best way to get a hold of me.
Okay. What is your, like, client load like? Do you see a lot of people telehealth, or do you see most people, like, in person?
It has switched in the recent years. I'd say it's about 50-50. If people live locally, I always encourage them to come in because I do pick up things on the exam. It's always nice to sit with someone face to face, meet them. I think you just get a different feel if you're in the room with somebody versus virtual. And then a lot of people choose to just be virtual for the next year after that, and that's fine. But I have people all over the United States, so um, I can make either work, whatever is best for you guys.
I really appreciate you being um, here on the podcast, but being willing to share so much information. And I know people, I'm an information overload person, and when I think about things like health, it's like there are so many things to think about. Like, I don't really know where to dial it down. And so some of the information that you can see out there is overwhelming. But I feel like having a practitioner like you um, helping is like, okay, this is how we can direct you so that you're not like throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks. You're actually getting a really good overview of what's necessary for your health and then being able to focus on that. I think a lot of people probably read a lot of things on the internet or they see a lot of this bad stuff going on out there and it's like, "Oh, I'll try this. Oh, I'll try that." But if you don't know what's going on in your body, then you might be trying things that really aren't benefiting you in the long run. And so I think what you do is great and would be helpful to anybody that's like, I just want to know what direction to look in to be sure that I am, on the right track with my health. So we appreciate that information. So I'm gonna ask you the grand finale question. You go to a coffee shop with a friend. What is your order?
It's so boring. It's like the most boring thing. I'm usually like, "What do you have on house?" Like brew. It's just black coffee, nothing in it. If I'm feeling super fancy and I go into some place and they're like, "Hey, we make homemade like almond milk or macadamia nut," then I would probably do like a latte or like a dirty chai latte with that. But usually it's just I'm too cheap to spend $5 on coffee. I'm the person that's going to the gas station to get a hot cup of water that's gonna make my coffee packet in the car. That's what I'm usually doing. So, it's not too exciting, the coffee order.
Now, because I think you've shared before, like, have you had issues with dairy? Do you have issues with dairy?
Unfortunately, I think I do have issues with dairy. So, I would like to add it back in. I'm gonna do some retesting to see if it's something I should be adding back in. I think I was doing fine with minimal amounts like hard cheese and butter. But then once I went crazy on the raw milk train, I think that maybe where things didn't go so well for me. So I think it can potentially cause an immune response for some people, and that may have been what was happening for me because I was having a lot of joint pain, which was not normal, which went away when I stopped the dairy. So I'm like, I don't know. It's not a good sign. um, I also don't consume wheat, but that I don't have celiac. I just have I have autoimmune disease. I have multiple autoimmune diseases which I acquired as a teenager when I was using drugs, and when I think what really set it off was my eating disorder when I starved myself. But because of that, I just don't want any more like leaky permeability in my gut that can cause things leaking into the bloodstream and cause an immune reaction. Um, but I could eat it and not probably have any symptoms. It's just I choose not to eat it because of that.
Yeah.
So I'd say cutting out gluten, not hard. Cutting out
Yeah.
dairy, very hard. You're like butter? Like, what will I do without butter? So what I've done is, a lot of tallow, which we had a half a cow we got last year, which was amazing. Or it was this year. So I've been using that in, like, baking cookies and stuff, so
Hmm. Never thought
yeah.
about tallow in place of butter. Is it like equal substitution?
Equal substitution, it just has a higher melting point, so, like, if you
Mm.
put it in with a cold egg, it may become, like, more solid than what butter would. So that's the only challenge with it.
That's interesting. Have you heard of the AIP diet?
Yeah.
Yes. What are your thoughts about that? Because you talked about inflammation and that being like one of the things that they utilize for autoimmune.
I have done AIP diet long ago when I first discovered I had autoimmune thyroid disease. Um, I'm not a fan of long-term diets, like doing that for the rest of your life. Like I've also been on a FODMAP diet when I had extreme digestive issues. It really helps get your symptoms under control, but it's not really fixing the problem, if that makes sense. It's like it's
Yeah.
a tool you can use to feel better and kind of quench the inflammation, but you still have to deal with the issue, which goes back to the cell health of why is your body
What was
breaking
causing it
down.
in the first place?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it comes back to how we're living. And that's why I talk about that so much. And it seems so mundane and so boring, but it's like it's so important. We're so far away from that. So, but yeah, AIP, I do sometimes recommend AIP. Um, it's an AIP low histamine diet for some
Yes.
people.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't even think about I had done this earlier because I was having some things that I thought were autoimmune related, and so I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna try this AIP diet." Again, like most people out there, no idea what's going on below the skin, but like, "Okay, I'm gonna try this and see if it helps me or see if it, makes any difference." And yeah, like I felt better, but those things come back once you go back to a regular eating pattern, like are you really helping anything, or are you just kind of keeping the symptoms at bay, and then have that inflammatory response come up again? But I didn't know about histamine being a thing. You think of histamine and you think of like pollen in the air and needing a antihistamine for, that, but like histamine is part of inflammation or the inflammatory response. And I had no idea. I just thought like it had to do with the spring, like the flowers, but it's really part of, your body's response to things, so I think that's crazy. Um, Black coffee, okay. Like, I can be with that for certain places. I really like McDonald's coffee. Have you ever had McDonald's coffee?
Not forever. I spent a good majority of my teenage and adult years working at McDonald's before I went into nursing. So I'm like, I really avoid that place as much as possible. And then since COVID, when they took all the salads off the menu, I'm like, there's no reason for me to go.
Yes.
They're never coming back on, I'm pretty sure. So
I
it's like,
used to love like, they had some sort of, like, Santa Fe salad or something, and I used to get that all the time, and then no, there's no salads on the menu anymore, and that's sad.
oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
I know the
bring it
coffee is
back.
really hot at McDonald's, the temperature,
Yeah.
because that's really
Mhm.
important to me. Like, that's one thing with coffee house coffee, where if it gets served and it's like kind of hot, I'm not gonna be happy with that. It needs to be
Yeah.
like burning hot. I'm a temperature person. It's like if it's supposed to be
Yeah.
cold, it needs to be cold. If it's supposed to be hot, it's gotta be hot.
Yeah.
That's why
You
I have
can't
a hard time justifying the price because I'm like, I could just make a really good cup at home for like next to nothing.
That is true. I'm working on making a good cup of just plain black coffee at home because I can make a latte at home that's great, that would rival the coffee shops. But for whatever reason, like my drip coffee or black coffee, I'm like, "No, I would just prefer to go get a cup of coffee from McDonald's." And I'll, like my dad, he'll buy 2 large cups of coffee from McDonald's, and he'll put it in, like, this thing that keeps it hot for 24 hours. And so he'll just be like, instead of making his own at home, he just goes and buys this big coffee.
In the end, it's probably not that expensive, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, McDonald's, it's a lot cheaper than like some of the bigger named coffee shops, but yeah, that's his way of making coffee. He just goes to McDonald's and gets a couple larges.
Yeah.
Well, Alex, thank you so much for being on the podcast. And you guys heard, you can reach out to her on Instagram. You can look her up on her website, and we'll put that in the show notes. But we'll have to have you back at some point because I wanted to really get deeper in the trying to conceive, because I know that there's a lot of people out there that, really are looking for information on that. So we might have to have you come and like do a special trying to conceive episode at some point in the near future. But thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks so much for tuning in to LifeHerStyle. If today's episode encouraged you, share it with a friend, leave a review, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Want to keep the conversation going? Come hang out with me on Instagram at LifeHerStyle. I'd love to connect with you there. And for deeper devotionals, resources, and encouragement straight to your inbox, join the LifeHerStyle community on Substack at lifeherstyle.substack.com. Until next time, remember, your life, your walk, your style. Do it all for the glory of God.